What's up everyone, it's Bones here. In today's video, I'll be featuring the new Nemleria archetype, but before I begin, if you could happen to click on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons, it would be greatly appreciated as it goes a long way in supporting the channel and shows me that you like content like this. Clicking on those notification bells would also mean a lot as they notify you when I upload on the channel. So before I get into the match replays, I would like to show off what the engine kind of does, and Sweet Dreams reads that you can add one Nemleria monster from your deck to your hand. Then if you have a face-up Dreaming Nemleria in your extra deck, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a Nemleria monster is normal or special summon this turn. You can place this card from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck, then target one Dreaming Nemleria you control, add it to the extra deck face-up. You can only activate one Sweet Dreams per turn. So a starter for the archetype with some bonus effects that do come up, but we'll be able to get the Dreaming Nemleria, which its pendulum effect reads, once per turn you can place one Nemleria continuous spell from your deck or graveyard face-up on your field, and if you do, add this card from your extra deck face up. You cannot special summon Dreaming Nemleria the turn you activate this effect. Its monster effect reads, cannot be normal summon set, must be special summoned from your extra deck face up. By having no cards in your extra deck except Dreaming Nemleria, you can only special summon Dreaming Nemleria once per turn this way. If this card is special summoned, you can banish up to one card your opponent controls and or in their graveyard face down for every 3 of your face down banished cards, then shuffle your face down banished cards into the deck equal to the number of cards banished by this effect. And I'll actually be able to get this off in one of the future replays. It's a cool effect nonetheless. It does have some implications as far as being able to put itself into the extra deck and then getting what you want going for the deck that I'll be showing, but we're going to use Dreaming Nemleria's effect in order to put it in the extra deck and get ourselves the continuous spell, the Sleeping Beauty Tower of Nemleria, and it reads that you can banish 2 face down cards from your extra deck face down cost, add 2 level 10 beast monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck this turn that you activate this effect, except pendulum monsters. You can only use this effect of Sleeping Beauty Tower of Nemleria once per turn, and if a Nemleria monster you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, while you have a face-up Dreaming Nemleria in your extra deck, you can banish one face-down card from your extra deck face-down instead. So some protection, it adds any 2 level 10 beasts with different names, along with the ability to get more cards from your extra deck face down banished, which is important as the game goes on because you want to be able to get those level 10s, but we're going to do just that, and we'll be able to see the level 10s here. The first one being Nemleria's Dream Defender O'Reilly, and it reads, if you have a face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Nemleria's Dream Defender O'Reilly once per turn this way. If you have a face-up Dreaming Nemleria in your extra deck quick effect, you can banish one face down card from your extra deck face down. This card gains 500 attack for each monster your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Nemleria's Dream Defender O'Reilly once per turn. The second level 10 here reads that if you have a face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Nemleria's Dream Defender Coet once per turn this way. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a Nemleria card you control, while you have a face-up Dreaming Nemleria in your extra deck quick effect, you can banish one face down card from your extra deck face down, negate the activation. You can only use this effect of Nemleria's Dream Defender Coet once per turn. So you have access to 2 level 10 bodies now, but you are locked into the extra deck. So you're gonna see that I'm going to bring out the 2 level 10s, and this is all we're going to be able to do. So now I'm going to take you into the replays to show how we're going to utilize this. So a replay I felt was perfect to introduce how this deck plays, and this was kind of cool because our opponent is going to watch us set up everything as they don't have anything but Ash, and we have the Vanity's Fiend in hand, which as you saw in our engine, we're able to just get free bodies, and because we're extra deck locked, we have to make use of that elsewhere, and we have the Vanity's Fiend. You could even play the Vanity's Ruler and stuff like that to go along with it, but you'll see that we also have the Adventure Engine, which is something nice since we can't normal or set the Dreaming Nemleria, so we're never going to use that type of effect, and we're going to use the Nemleria engine now that we've gotten our adventure stuff going, and you're going to see that we're going to get our 2 level 10s via the continuous spell after we use Dreaming Nemleria, and we'll banish the 2 cards from extra deck face down as our opponent is going to ask that, and we're just going to shotgun the Griffin because we have a win con in hand, and from here we're then going to get ourselves the 2 level 10s as our opponent will just watch us special summon them. We'll tribute summon for the Vanity's Fiend. As we keep the Coet with its 2500 defense, we'll set the Book of Moon, and then from here we'll pass to our opponent where they're going to end up scooping straight away. So not much of a replay, but it was one that I wanted to show in order to introduce the idea I had for how to utilize these cards. Now on to game 2, and you'll see that we're also on Dimension Shifter. And as the replays go, you're going to see that I drew this a lot, but I also want to talk about how important this card potentially is in the coming format when you consider that there's things like the Eevee deck that are coming, that Dimension Shifter can just make all their spell cards get banished and they won't be able to get them back with Plump or anything like that. And you can make some very awkward scenarios, especially versus a deck like Mathmech, though you'll be able to see that they did draw the Called by the Grave for it this time around. So we're going to let our opponent go first this time around as they chose to, and then they're going to use the Small World, as we're then going to watch them add the Subtraction, as we're then going to see them normal summon the Veiler. We're going to use the effect of the Shifter, and then from here we'll be able to watch our Shifter get banished by the Called by the Grave. So not the card that we wanted to see banished, but we're going to watch our opponent go into the Almirage, get the Parallel Exceed, as they'll then be able to get the extra body off of it. They'll make it level 4, go into Alimbertion. Alimbertion will then be able to get them into their circular, and then from here they have combo, but we're going to watch them go off, and we still have a fighting chance, sort of. And this is something that I do want to mention about the deck. When you do happen to see your level 10, or you see the continuous spell, it's not necessarily that great, because without Dreaming Nemleria in the extra deck, you don't have anything to really make them work. So we're going to watch our opponent get a draw for the Drolan Lockbird, which does come up, and we'll then see that our opponent is going to make the Pit Knight along with Soul, set the Super Factorial, and they'll end on that. So we're going to get the Dark Ruler, and this was a huge top deck, and I'm really only showing this replay because, as mentioned, Nemleria is an engine. You're going to have to play with the other stuff outside of the engine because it's kind of the same thing as Adventure or Punk. You're not always going to see them. But we're going to use the Water Enchantress to get our right, as we're then going to get hit by the Droll. We'll use the right as we'll get the token, and then from here we can tribute summon for the Vanity's Fiend, and because we have the Dark Ruler no more, we'll be able to make the Heat Soul 2300 attack over it, and this is basically going to checkmate our opponent, as they just have Super Factorial set with a Pit Knight, and they top deck the Circular, which is going to do absolutely nothing. So now for this next replay, you'll see we have the Prosperity, the Shifter again, Ash Blossom, Rite of Aramis here, along with the Continuous Spell, and this is actually a very solid hand, especially when you look at the Shifter versus Tier, and this ends up being a really crazy replay. So besides me having the Shifter, don't click off too soon, as we're going to use the Shifter. Our opponent is going to banish 3 cards that really don't care about being banished, as they're then going to bring out the Tearlament's Kashtira, and they're then going to get 3 mills off of our deck. And what happens here, as you saw a flash there, they do hit our Fateful Adventure, and that makes it so that our Rite of Aramis here is not necessarily that good, so that changes a lot. And we're going to get a second copy of Prosperity, which isn't great, but we're then going to use the Prosperity now, and we'll then reveal 6, I believe, as we're then going to get ourselves the Vanity's Ruler, as you see that we do hit a couple of them, and then from there we're going to activate the right, and we're doing this in order to get our tribute summon for the Vanity's Fiend. Luckily, the Tearlament's Kashtira is only 2300 attack, so it won't do anything to the Fiend, as we're going to attack over the Merly, and then we'll go on to our opponent's turn where they're going to top deck the Rhino Heart. They're going to use the Rhino Heart effect in order to get a name into the graveyard. They're also going to imperm the Vanities, which ends up being pretty big as they can play, sort of. But they're going to bring out the other Tearlament's Kashtira, banishing the Sharon. We're going to Ash that so that they can't get any Saki Mills here. They're going to go into the Shang Tsung with 3000 defense. We can't really do anything against that, because we're then going to top deck the Dreaming Nemleria, and this is actually a pretty big top deck. We're able to get our engine going and just thin out the deck while we have our Vanity's Ruler in order to help draw ourselves into the out, along with all the gas that we would need to go for game after. We'll get ourselves the 2 level 10. We're going to say that the Shang doesn't really matter and let them lock as many zones, ones as he wants until we get our out. And from here, we'll be able to get the right as we want the token for the extra body. Our opponent is going to continue to hit our zones as we're then going to go to his turn. And from here, they'll draw the Foolish Burial of Goods where they're going to send the Trivy Karma. And then they'll use the Trivy Karma in order to get themselves a field spell. And from here, I believe they're going to make a minor misplay where they're actually going to normal summon the Rhino Heart, but they had no more targets in deck. So they're just going to have to pass on it. And then from here, we'll go to the battle phase, attack over the Rhino Heart. And then from here, we'll go to the end phase. They'll draw the Big Bang for turn. And this is where I had a little bit of a fear because I knew that if they set anything that wasn't Big Bang, it was going to be relatively easy to play through because one imperm wouldn't do too much to what I had. We're going to tribute summon for the shifter now, getting rid of our win con, quote unquote, and we're going to start bringing out our 10s. And in the back of my mind, I knew it could have been Big Bang. I didn't want to believe it was Big Bang. They'll banish our cards as they're also going to get more zone locks via the Shang. Activate the right now, and we do have the Griffin Rider in hand, which is another reason why I tributed the Vanity's Ruler. We're then going to get the additions off of the continuous spell for the 2 other level 10s. Our opponent will choose to block another zone, which I'm surprised it didn't go for the last monster zone, but they're then going to draw Shaddoll Beast, which just does nothing. We're going to negate the Shang because we don't want to see 2 Kashtira monsters come in the span of these next 2 turns, considering the state of game that we're in. Our opponent is going to use the Mudora to get some resources back that they ended up milling, and then from here they'll use the effect of the field spell in order to pop our continuous spell. So from here we'll go on to our turn where we're going to get the Sweet Dreams. Our opponent will bring out a Fenrir via the Shang, as we're then going to special summon out the 10, go into the Dreadnought, as we'll be able to go into the battle phase, attack over the Fenrir, go into Zeus. This is where we'll use the Zeus to finally get over the Shang. And from here, we'll bring out the Dreaming Nemleria, as we had no cards in extra deck. We ended up using them all. And we'll be able to put some of our opponent's resources back, as we actually misclicked on the Big Bang, and I didn't get to banish it face down, which would have been nice, but we did get to hit the 2 Tearlaments, Kashtira, face down, banished, and then put some of our resources back. We're going to get the last level 10 that we put back with the effect of the Dreaming Nemleria so that we can get the Sweet Dreams into the graveyard and then put it back into the extra deck so that we would have the ability to bring out our level 10s next turn. As our opponent draws a Talons, they have to set the Agido, as we're then going to be able to bring out our bodies, and then we can use the O'Reilly's effect while have the continuous spell there for protection. We'll change it to 3000 attack, as we're going to attack over the set with the 2000 attacker, and now because we have 6000 damage against 5900 life points, we end up taking this one. I'm sorry that this is another shifter replay, and you'll see that we ended up just drawing a bunch of generic cards, and this is kind of the thing with the deck. Nemleria stuff is an engine. There is going to be times where you're going to have hands like this, so I think it's important to showcase regardless, because there's going to be times where hands like these are just going to lose you games automatically as well, especially when the decks have gas. But our opponent does set 3, have the Shang. Our only real hope here is the Fenrir, the Book of Moon, and the Vanities, but we also have the Dark Rulers for the Fenrir. Should have mentioned that as well, but our opponent is going to imperm the Fenrir, and that is going to stop us from being able to banish their Fenrir. We'll activate the right now, and then from here we can get the token. We'll get the Fateful Adventure, use the Fateful Adventure in order to get our Griffin Rider. We'll pitch the Vanity's Ruler because we're not going to be able to use that. We'll summon out the Griffin Rider, as we're then going to get the Search off the Fateful for the Draco back, and from here we'll be able to equip the Draco back to the token, as we're going to bounce back the Shang, and that's the best way we have to kind of out that, because the 3000 defense is a problem if we can't use the effect of our Fenrir. So we're going to see our opponent use the Fenrir to get themselves a Tearlaments Kashtira, and then we're going to use our Fenrir in order to banish their Fenrir. Our opponent is going to hit that with an imperm, and we're going to chain the Book of Moon in order to assure that we can banish their Fenrir. Being that they do chain the Tearlaments Kashtira, this does put us in a very favorable position, because now our opponent will have to rely on milling the right cards, which they don't, and they're going to have to pass. We're then going to get Prosperity, and our opponent is going to scoop, knowing that we have Fenrir along with the Adventure Engine online. I want to get into some singles, one more with the Adventure version, and then I'm going to show another version of the deck that I still want to showcase if you don't want to play the adventure version. And you're going to see that we have another shifter hand. And this is going to be just a showcase of what this can do against some of the more powerful decks rely on the graveyard. Keep in mind that shifter just happens to mess with Turia Runic, it happens to mess with Labyrinth, it happens to mess with Eevee deck, it just happens to be good against anything that really isn't Kashtira. We're going to go to our turn now where we get a second Ash, and again, not the greatest because we have the Draco back. We do have our Nemleria engine online, so this is what's nice about it. Don't care if the Sweet Dreams is banished either, because while it's nice that you can get the extra deck send off of its graveyard effect where you put it to the bottom of the deck and whatnot, once you have Dreaming Nemleria in the extra deck face up, the rest of your level 10s are online. So we're going to Ash the Mole Cricket here, and we're going to bring out the Orion. And I want to point out that when you bring out the 2 level 10s, you probably should bring out the Coet first, as it does have that targeting protection, which is important to note. And from here, we'll be able to use the effect of the making it attack 3k, as we're going to attack over the Hugin, and then we're going to be able to watch our opponent get it back, attack for 3k here. We're then going to tribute summon for our Vanity's Fiend, and from here, our opponent is going to squirm, because they're going to go into the main phase. The Foolish Burial Good, send a Sacred Tree. Sacred Tree will get them into a search for the Camellia. Camellia is not going to do anything to us because of the ruler, as they're then going to send the Mole Cricket. They'll set a copy of the Brilliant Flames, which again really does nothing to us because of Vanity's Ruler just locking our opponent down. Then from here we'll use the Sleeping Beauty Tower in order to get 2 more level 10s, trim our deck. We're going to use the effect of the O, and this is going to force our opponent to scoop, knowing that they cannot out the Vanity's Ruler. Now, this is a game 2 I played against Dragon Link. Game 1, I ended up spinning just a bunch of generic cards. So, as you can see, this is a Grand Maju version of the deck, as we're doing all that banishing. This is another option that you have. I have to say that this version of the deck is sack or die, as you don't really have any going first stuff besides the Fenrir. We don't have the Adventure Engine. Vanity's Ruler isn't in this deck either, because you want to be able to bring out your explosive cards like Gizmek Orochi and stuff. But we're going to watch our opponent combo while we just end on Fenrir Pass. And you'll see why I decided to feature more so the adventure version, and it's because I kind of didn't want to give you guys this, but I felt this was a good enough replay to showcase this version of it, while also being able to replay that the picture of both versions quite well, as this is quite a long replay. So we're going to see that our opponent is going to use the launch in order to get the Tracer. They're under Shifter, so they have to go into the Savage attack over the Rears. They don't have an equip to it, so they don't have any negations. And the replay is going to get kind of nuts here, because we did get the Thunderbird, but the problem with this is that our opponent is going to snipe the Thunderbird, going to have to attack their set. We'll be able to then summon the Grand Maju. We'll get in for 2400 damage, can't attack with the Boral because of the mind control. We'll go into the Dagger now in order to out the Boral, and then we'll see our opponent is going to get another Bestial. We'll go on to our turn where we do get the Gizmek Orochi, but I'm not going to summon it, as we are still 5600 away, and Donna can put in 1600 more in order to make the next turn the last, as long as our opponent does not draw anything. The problem is that they happen to draw Lubellion, which is a light that they can get into the graveyard and get them another Bestial. From here they're going to bring out the Magna Hut. They'll have a monster now that can beat over the Dagger, and then from here they'll go into the battle phase, beat over it, as then we're going to go into our turn, and they have a safer for follow-up. So we'll use the Gizmek now, and this is just going to desperately attempt to not just out their Magna Hut, but hope that they have nothing else, knowing that they have Saranir, but then be able to use the Gizmek here, pop the Magna Hut, as we did get into the Sweet Dream. So this was a big top deck, as we get ourselves the Dreaming Nemleria. Use the Dreaming Nemleria's effect in order to use these Sweet Dreams in order to put it back into the extra deck. So this is where it actually comes up. And the cool thing here is, now that we have our level 10s, we can bring them out on board. And we aren't locked, I don't believe, if I didn't use that effect this turn. I don't remember if I did or not. But going to then be able to beat over the Saranir, because we happen to get the Sweet Dreams top deck, as our opponent is going to send the Lubellion, which again kind of hurt, but opponent is going to bring out the Baldrake. We'll go into our Dreadnought, which I made a misclick here. I needed to summon it in defense, but I did that accidentally. I couldn't stop it. we're then going to use its effect to make it unaffected by card effects so that our opponent can't do anything to it. The only thing that they have that they can do here is Boral and attack over it, and that's why I wanted it to be in defense position. Opponent is then going to get themselves two bodies here. They're going to be able to combo. They'll also have the branded regained in order to get themselves a draw into the evenly, luckily not the greatest of draws, as they're going to search themselves the boot sector. They'll then be able to use the boot sector effect in order to bring out the tracer. They'll use the tracer, and I think that they may have thought that they had another copy of Savage, or that they still had their Savage here, because they ended up having to go into quad Boral. They're not just going to have the resources in order to be able to go into Boral, and they also don't have access code. With all of the replays out of the way, we can finally get onto the deck profile, and the first thing that you're going to see from the adventure version is that do play a decent amount of important cards that can get banished. Example, when you happen to one or even two of these banished by your opponent's mind hacker or whatever, it really hurts the ability to be able to grind. And another problem that the deck has is when you start seeing these, as you saw in previous replays, where my opponent happened to able to amass advantage because these were just sitting in hand while I had no Dreaming Nemleria in my extra deck. This is also the only monster applicable that we play in order to get these out on board. Shifter is just an MVP. The Santa Claus, nice for going into Zeus. The Evenly, the Book of Moons, just cards that I felt that the deck needed to play if it wanted to go first and second. Being able to Book of Moon or have a Shifter once you have the Adventure Engine online, or just have your Vanity's Ruler can be really important. Then going second, I'll be honest, engine-wise, you aren't breaking much unless it's a very specific situation, like you saw when I happened to be able to get my Math Mech opponent under the Vanity's Ruler before they can Super Factorial. That's what makes Evenly so important in this deck, in my opinion. I think that whenever blowout cards change, for example, if Nibiru is great at a certain point in format, or Evenly isn't, I feel like you have to put in the Nibiru. Feel like want the best blowout cards in this deck as possible for each format. So see that we only have the two Fenrirs, and I didn't want to play the third. We're already playing so much engine, I didn't want to go over 40, but that explains just the two. Outside of that, I don't really have too much that I want to say about the deck here. But a bunch of rank 10s along with the Lieb in order to go into that with one of our trains so that we can attack over multiple monsters. This is basically just Downerd Magician package for level 10s. And then we have the two Zeus with the two daggers for hire, the two BLS. Again, a bunch of nothing, but the danger version. And I know that I showed only one replay of this. It's because it wasn't a great deck to get replays with. Frankly, you're either getting blown out or you're sacking the living daylights out of your opponent. Without drawing Shifter Evenly, amongst other stuff, there just didn't feel like there was enough good replays to go on for this deck from what I was able to get. You'll see that the extra deck is similar. We do have different ratios somewhat because we are able to go for rank 8s more consistently. The Lingaribo is here for Ibli. If I'm not playing it in the other version, you could probably do that. But we also have the Appaloosa, which is another thing that you can go into. You can also put Underworld Goddess here if you want. You'll see that in the side deck we have one Vanity's Ruler with the two Majesty's Fiends, and the point of this is to say just play either or. I understand the argument for both, but I think in the adventure version you always play the Vanity's Ruler because you don't want to shut off your own adventure cards. The Lava Golems and Sphere modes are even better in this version because the only normal summon that you're really going for is the Grand Maju, and being able to clear boards, always blinding second with this deck is really important. As you can see from the Dragon Link video, you're going first or follow up whenever you have to end on a board for your opponent to crack. It's not going to be a very strong board. That being said, Fenrir makes it onto both deck lists because it is something that gives your opponent to sort of out, and D-Shifter being a great card against anything that's not Kashtira end up being really important too. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, I'm just gonna get onto the card by card, as I don't want to waste too much time talking and possibly repeating some of the same stuff. The 3 Dreaming Nemleria, the 3 Sweet Dreams, the 3 Grand Maju, the 3 Gizmex, the 3 Fenriers, the 3 Danger Nessie, the 1 Jackalope, the 1 Thunderbird, the 1 Bigfoot, the 2 Continuous Spell, the 4 level 10s of the Nemleria archetype, as we're playing 2 and 2 of each. I forget their names, so then we have the 3 Shifter, the 3 Evenly, the 3 Gamma Seal, the 2 Desires, along with the 1 Mind Control, and the Change of Heart, the main deck. Onto the extra deck, we have the 2 Zeus, the 2 Seven Sins, the 2 Ravenous, the 1 Dreadnought, the 1 Super Dreadnought, the 1 Lieb, the 1 Dingirsu, the 1 Hope, the 1 Dingaribo, the 1 Dagger, the 1 BLS, and the 1 Appaloosa to round out the extra deck. Onto the side deck, we have the 3 Hatronades, the 3 Lightning Storm, just blowouts. Then you can pick whichever ruler you want or whichever fiend. Then we have the 3 Lava Golems and the 3 Sphere Modes to round out the deck profile. The adventure version, we have the 3 Sweet Dreams, we have the 3 Nemeralias, we have the 2 Continuous Spell with the 2 Water Enchantress and the 2 Rights. We have the 3 Vanities Ruler, Griffin Rider, Fateful, Dracoback, the 3 Prosperity, along with the 1 Foolish, the 2 Fenriers, and the 2 level 10s of the Nemleria archetype. We have the 3 Shifter, the 3 Santa Claus, the 3 Evenlies, and the 3 Book of Moons to round out the main deck. For the extra deck, we have the 2 Cannons, we have the 2 Super, we have the 2 Liebs, the 1 Ravenous, the 1 Sinful, or the 1 Seven Sins, the 2 Zeus, the 2 Dagger, the 2 BLS, and the 1 Underworld Goddess to round out the extra deck. For the side deck, we have the 3 Nibs, we have the 3 Denko, which can easily be brought in for your Vanities Fiend when you're going second versus Labyrinth, which is just amazing. The 3 Ash Blossoms, the Dark Rulers, and the 3 Hatronades to round out the deck profile. Anyways, if you made it this far into the video, I thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below. It's Bones, signing out.